these are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends.
This way, and we're live. Welcome back to another episode of Professional Hippies. We're your hippies. If you are into music, today we have a very special treat for you. And no, it's not Dylan. We have an artist coach in our midst. Hey, the cool thing about Nick, and I'm going to give you a little rundown on who our guest is today, and then we'll get into who we are, what we're all about, that kind of stuff. If you're into music, Nick and I have become pretty good pals as of late, and he's crushing me in the morning, loving it at the gym. And one of the cool things about Nick, coming from the music industry, and it seems like every time we work out, this is something I really appreciate about you. I'll mention a song that I just get turned on to, and you're like, oh yeah, I know their manager, or I used to work with whoever. Like, it consistently blows me away. So Nick has 13 years in the music industry. He's done everything from worked at Capitol Records. He's managed DJs, producers, helped build the world's #1 music production school, has coached over 100 artists. And instead of waiting until later, I'll just tell you guys right now, you got to go check out his podcast. It's called the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Super, super great content. And it just gives you a window into the world of artistry, production, DJing. One of the things I love about where you're going with that, Nick, is that like that is something that I feel like as a consumer of music, I've always wanted, is to get to that behind the curtain kind of view. And so I'm sure we'll get into that and a whole bunch more. But if you don't know us, we're the Professional Hippies. We like to bridge the gap between professionalism, whatever that means to you, and the hippie woo-woo. Again, we don't judge. And meet you somewhere in the middle, right there. Today's sponsor, if you want to stay safe when you are altering your consciousness, head on over to our buddies at testkitplus.com. If you put a / there, Professional Hippies, you get a little bit of a discount. Not only does it help you stay safe, you can trust strangers now too, but it allows us to keep doing what we do. So if you love this podcast, make sure you share it with someone else that you love. And without further ado, Nick, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? I'm doing well.
What's up?
What's up?
Dude, I am like super stoked to have you on, because I've been telling Dylan here and there, I'm like, yo, we got to get Nick on, because it just feels like one of those things, like we're going to have to pull a few threads, I'm sure, to just kind of get you to reach back into the treasure trove. But like, let's just start here. How did you get into the music industry? Like, how did that start for you?
Yeah, well, I grew up playing music like my whole life since I was 10 years old. I played the drums. That was my first real love and instrument. Played the guitar. Learned I was making hip hop beats. I was even rapping, like all through, from 10 years old all the way, through college. And basically got to the end of college, just kind of bought into the template of like, you're supposed to go to college after high school, and just kind of did that without any real purpose or direction. Kind of hated the whole 4 years as far as the school side of it. I just fucking partied the whole time. And then like, as I was like, got, a month away from graduating, I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? And so it was one of my best friend's dad kind of pointed it out to me. I had a business degree, like econ degree. And he was like, well, look, you got this business degree and you're really passionate about music. Why don't you go work in the music business? And I was just like, oh shit, that makes perfect sense. Like, these are, let's do it. And so I literally just packed my bags and moved to LA. I think I had like $1,000 that I saved up. I was like, I'm going to LA. One of my best friends had moved there about 6 months before, just chasing his dream of being a rock star. Shout out Lunar Code, his band. He's actually fucking out there killing it. And yeah, man, just like literally a couple duffel bags and a skateboard and $1,000, and just drove down to LA. And I was like, let's fucking do this thing.
Drove down to LA from where? Where were you coming from?
Well, I was in college. I went to college in San Diego, and then I went back home for like 3 months to save up, and then I moved down. And then I like literally like right after moving there, like broke my leg in like a rugby game. So I was put on my ass for 3 months or so. I couldn't walk at all. And again, I only had really one friend. I hadn't really made that many contacts yet. But then it was like that just kind of, I was just like living off my credit card. It was just this like do or die moment of like, all right, dude, do you really want this dream? Like, are you actually about this? Because you don't have any money. I didn't have a fucking job. I just broke my leg. I couldn't even walk. And it was just probably one of the most powerful character shaping moments of my life, because I was just faced with this decision, do I stay and keep going, or do I tuck my tail between my legs and just like, move back home with my mom or something? And I was like, nah, I'm gonna fucking dig in. So as soon as I could start walking again, I just kind of hit the ground running, and I was like, I was just hungry. I had one friend from college that had also moved to LA. She knew I'm giving you the long story here, but she knew a woman, or she worked for a company. It was a PR company. They were putting on a press conference for the Latin Grammy. They were announcing the Latin Grammy Award nominees. And she was like, look, we're putting on this event. If you come and volunteer, I can get you in the room. It's going to be a bunch of music industry people. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. Sign me up. She's like, get here at 5 a.m. and you're going to like set up chairs. I was like, hell yeah. Right. I can walk again. I'm ready. I'm hungry. Showed up at 5 a.m., helped them set up. And then at some point in the day, somebody pointed out this woman, and they were like, hey, like, that woman's like a big deal at Capitol Records. She's like the head of Capitol Records or something. I was like, fuck yeah, that's all I need to know. Literally on the spot, I just beelined it across the room, walked up to this lady. I was like, hey, I heard you work at Capitol Records, and I'm looking for a job, and I would love to apply. And her assistant had just put in her 2 weeks, like pretty much that day. And then I just fucking walked up and got an interview, and she hired me, and she was like, dude, I just love the fucking balls that you have on you to like walk up to this, like, to an executive like that. And she's like, you're the kind of guy I want, like as my assistant. She was the woman that signed and discovered Katy Perry. And I just got in, I literally, next thing I know, I had my own office in Capitol Records overlooking Hollywood, and it was a game changer. So that's the kind of long, short story.
Were you sitting in that office once you got it, and you were like, just kind of looking around like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew a little bit more about gratitude back then, because I probably would have like soaked up some more of those moments. It was more like, all right, what the fuck do I do now? Like, I got in. Now I need to like,
I made it here.
Now I got to figure this shit
fever
out.
dream. You're like, I would assume now, knowing you as long as I've known you, you probably just like had that like, okay, hey, we've arrived, but we haven't arrived kind of feeling, where you're like, at that point, you're like ready to take it to the next notch. You're like, okay, what's the next thing I got to do?
Yeah, I was hungry. To be honest, that was actually a bit of a detriment, because I was so eager to get to the next level that I wasn't actually just focused on doing my job in front of me very well. Mm-hmm. So I was always like, I literally moved to like the Sunset Strip, and it's like, I'm going to go sign bands. And I was like going out to the Whiskey and the Roxy and the Viper Room every night, like scouting bands. But it was like, and I don't know, I never found anything really cool that was ambitious. That would have been a great way to kind of climb the ladder. But also what I really needed to do was just be really fucking good at being an assistant, that was the level that I was at. But I was always trying to like take on more and do something else. I also just like was not cut out to be an assistant. That's just like not my.
You don't say.
Yeah. I was literally the worst assistant. I also had like the hardest boss though. She was literally, she told me one day, she's like, hey, have you ever seen that movie, The Devil Wears Prada?
I was just about to say.
And I was like, no, I never seen it. She's like, I want you to go home and watch that movie tonight, because like, this is who I'm this person, and like, I'm the boss and you're the assistant. And she was like, she was fucking intense, dude. I was like her thing. And it was a really interesting relationship. But it's like
something interesting about like female bosses. Like I was listening to a podcast maybe, or something I came across, and they just pointed out that Elon hired a woman for the role of CEO for Twitter, but they also pointed out that he hired a woman for the CEO of Tesla. And I don't know about SpaceX in particular, but there's just something on, and I was like playing it through my head, and I'm wondering, like, women are so dynamic in their emotional understanding, but it also feels like when they give intense feedback, it feels like it cuts a little bit deeper. And I wonder if that serves them at a higher level there, or what are your thoughts on that?
She was a shark. She told me, no, I also like, this is the music industry too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this isn't tech. This isn't like some normal corporate shit. Like, this was like coming up in the 90s in the music industry. And I remember her telling me stories and shit. She's like, I had to fucking scratch and claw my way to the top. Like, I had to be a fighter. I never saw a soft side of her, you know, like barely did we ever have some, like, I got to get in a little bit on that side of it. But she was just like, I had to build this very, not that she had to, she chose to, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it was like, to make it in the music industry, this, you know, very like male dominated industry. And also like, dude, back then too, coming up like in the 90s and shit, it was like the Wild West. It was different. You didn't, you know what I mean? There's like, people got away with shit back then. You don't get away with stuff now. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, she was a badass.
Yeah, now that there's phones everywhere, right? So I mean, if a boss is slipping or a band's slipping or whatever, like it's not just out there; it's like out there forever. So, so have you seen? You know, not to skip forward too much, but how do you feel like, because you've kind of been intimately attached to the industry for so long now? Like, how do you feel like, just from a macro sense, how do you feel like you've seen the industry evolve or shift?
I think the biggest thing is it's very accessible now. Whereas if you think about what it took to make music 10, 15 years ago, you know, it used to be that you had to get signed to a label. It was very expensive. You needed to get into a studio and you needed to, you know, pay for expensive studios. And that's been just, technology has shifted it. If you have a laptop, you can make music. You know, that's why we're seeing the rise of electronic music and DJs, where it's like, not only do I not need a record label to make the music, I don't need a record label to market the music. I can get on SoundCloud and put out a track and get 1 million views. I can put a track out on Spotify, you know, and blow up. I can make my own visuals and I can design my own stuff. I can have AI make my fucking artwork now. I don't even need to hire a designer anymore. So making music has become a lot more accessible and easy, promoting yourself, but also it means that the market is just flooded and oversaturated. So because everybody can do it, there's 100 times more people doing it. So it's interesting because, you know, I do think that, and, you know, we talk about this on the podcast a lot now. It's like, as I'm interviewing these artists, really asking them, you know, these same questions. And it's just like almost like building a brand and the marketing side of it, creating content. You know, you now kind of have to build your audience yourself. And so you have to be good at marketing. You have to be good at branding. Of course, you still need to make good stuff, but it almost feels like it's become less important. You know? Yeah.
It's kind of an afterthought. I see a lot of labels kind of forcing their artists to make TikToks. Like, that's something I've seen a trend lately. Like, Knock 2 is an example that comes to mind. I was telling Abby about him the other day. And so I don't know if you are aware of him, but he's kind of coming up. He's in that, like, you can feel the energy and the momentum behind him, right?
Yeah.
So he's like selling out his venues, like Kingdom here. He's going to sell out like that kind of venue.
Sick.
And you could see him just so not enthusiastic about the TikTok. He's like, hey, here's a day in the life, you know? But he's like fired up to be on tour. It's just, he's like, I think one video was, I had to put out this TikTok because my label made me. It's like,
wow.
Well, and here's the thing, you know, this is what I'm leaning into a lot recently after just having even just a few of conversations with the touring artists that I do know. And it's like, there are so many artists out there that are fucking really good. They're making amazing stuff, and we will never hear them because they're not down to put themselves out there, you know? And it's like, this I actually had this insight the other day, which I think is wild. When you had to get signed to a label, you didn't have digital marketing available. You couldn't just put your track up on Spotify or on SoundCloud. You had to go through a label. The label had they had to help you make the music. They had to help you distribute the music. It was like, you couldn't get you had to make a CD and get it into the stores. You couldn't do that yourself. And so at that time, all the artists are complaining, like, fuck, like, the only way to succeed is to get signed by a major label, and major labels are corrupt, and blah, blah, blah. You know, they were complaining about it. Okay, well, now you don't have to do that anymore. Now you can make your own shit and you can put it out. And now artists are complaining, oh, I have to do everything by myself, and I have to do it all myself now. I don't have the help. It's like, if you're a victim and you're a complainer, you're always going to be a fucking victim and a complainer. That's why I'm like, I work on the mindset. That's why my podcast is called Headliner Mindset. Like, a headliner doesn't think that way. They're just like, where's the technology? Where's the opportunity? And what do I need to do to get to where I want to go? If I'm so focused and committed on my goals, I'm going to go there no matter what. I'm going to use the tools, the resources available, right?
You can definitely see the artists that build teams around them as they grow. Like, I mean, they're the CEO of their brand that they're building. And it's always you can always, it seems, tell the ones that are with a label company and they're having everything taken care of for them that way, but they're being told what to do, versus the ones that they're telling what their team to do and how they want it done. Yeah. So really all they do have to do is they have a couple of meetings, probably a week, and to prepare for the next show. And then they show up for the show and everything's set up for them, and they have the people surrounding them they trust. You know, it always seems like when you follow them and how their lives are on social media, it seems like they're having a way better time than those that are kind of being told what to do. Like you said, Colton, with that one guy.
Yeah, and I noticed that when I was working at Capitol Records, it was like, you know, there's artists that they're coming in with a really clear vision, and they're like, I know what I want, I know who I am, and I'm here to have your team help me. Versus people that are just coming in and being like, whatever, I don't really know, like, and then the label gets very involved or overly involved. So it's interesting, you know, it's an interesting dynamic, and that's the biggest thing is like, no path is right or wrong. You know, there's no one right way to do it. Everyone that has gotten to a certain level, or, you know, every single journey is different. And that's, I think, a big thing too, and it's just like for all of us in life, you know, it's like nobody's path looks the same. We all got here and we're all going to different places on our own little unique individual journey. And, you know, it's good to see what other people have done and take note, but also, like, you know, your thing can look different than anybody else's.
What's an artist you feel like?
Go ahead, buddy.
You got it there first. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I'll remember mine.
I was just curious, what's an artist you feel like had a very unique road that maybe you had like an insight or a window to watching their journey unfold? I think it's easy to ask you, like, what's your favorite artist that you've seen come up? But like, what's one where you like saw them overcome obstacles in a unique way, or find their voice, their sound, like their original moments in a way where you got to see that intimately and up close?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think about a good example. Yeah, I mean, I personally love hearing stories about overcoming challenge. You know, we all love that, like, underdog story. And yeah, someone that I've been chatting with, trying to lock down to get on the podcast, he was actually one of the very first people I thought of, was this DJ producer called Ghastly. And he
big fan.
Yeah, I remember him coming in. He's just a badass, you know. Saw him. He didn't go to Icon Collective, was this like music production school that I worked at, that I was with for a long time. He didn't go there, but he was kind of like a stepchild, and so he would always be there hanging out with like the homies and working out of it and stuff. But I remember him coming in, and he did a Q&A there one time and just told about his story. And it was like, you know, he came to LA just chasing his dream, and it was like living out of his car for a while, you know. And I've even seen there were kids at Icon sometimes where they're straight just literally like sleeping in their car. They're like, I'm so hungry for this that I'm willing to like live out of my car. I'm willing to like be homeless or just like couch surfing, you know, or whatever. But I remember him telling me that story, and I was like, it's so inspiring, you know, because now it's like, dude, you're killing it, right? You're like, we all love a good story like that. I personally do, and I think I resonate with it because it was like, yeah, I kind of came to LA with nothing. Also, I think LA also is just, it's a fucking beast, and it tests you. Like, I truly believe on like a spiritual level, if you choose to chase your dream and you want to go into the monster of Los Angeles, something is going to happen within the first 6 months that's going to test your ass. your fucking car is going to get stolen. It's going to get broken into. Like, you're going to get robbed. Like, it's like there's this initiation that comes with it. I love that shit. I love hearing stories like that. So that's not necessarily a unique example. I think also people that make a pivot, like I just interviewed this girl, Freddie Lane, on my podcast just this last week, and she had a really successful corporate job. She's killing it. She had been like built a company for like 10 years, like an event production company, and was just killing it, making money, had all the things. You got the money, got the car, got the apartment, got all the stuff that society tells you is going to make you happy. But if there's something inside of you that wants to come out, that's a gift or a passion or just some sort of call to adventure, and you don't listen to it, then I don't care what you're doing. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how safe and secure you are. Right? You could tick all the boxes. It's still gonna be eating at you. Right? And so again, I think coming to back the theme here I'm seeing is courage. It's just like that courage to chase your dreams. So she quit her job. She just launched her project in September, not even a year ago. She's already played EDC, Beyond Wonderland. She's playing Nocturnal. These are like 3 massive, massive festivals that Insomniac puts on in California. She's played every single one of the biggest nightclubs in Southern California. She's been fucking working. It's been popping off. So
treating it like a job, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You see so many artists fall in love with the art of creationism or creation, but not also honoring the other part of it, where it's like, hey, I think there's a really unique opportunity, and what you get to do is grounding them a bit and being like, hey, I can appreciate how much you love creating, but also like that fuel, your medicine is wanting to share, right? Like, you want to share your music. Your music is your medicine. And it's like, if that's the ether you're working through, it's also in the benefit of your audience to do everything you can to get your medicine to them. And not just harboring it. And like, I'm just really taken back by like thinking about the world you get to operate in. And I'm sure that a lot of artists feel small, feel not adequate, compare themselves to others. And I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Is it like a creative, like a pure creative? And then you have to like step into the business world too. Like that, It's got to be daunting.
Yeah, well, I love that you bring that up, because I literally was just having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday where we got to tap into that deeper purpose, that deeper why. Because when it's coming from a place of service, and when you there's so much ego. This is everything I do is just like working through the ego, right? Working through the mind, that part of your mind that believes like look at this art that I'm creating, right? Look at this stuff that I'm creating so that I can put it out there, and so that I can have this lifestyle, and I can do all these things. And when the ego is attached to the creation, when the ego is attached to the music, and ultimately like to the gift, it's always going to get in the way. And I really like to help people reframe. And the artists that I think like truly get it, you see it all the time. When you see oftentimes like really, really successful artists, like true iconic artists, they'll oftentimes talk about like, hey, I didn't actually even make this song. This song came to me, and I am just the vessel that was chosen for this creative energy to come through. And a lot of them don't take credit. They're like, this came from somewhere else. I didn't actually even make this. And I like to invite artists to shift into that perspective, because then the whole game changes, right? We talk about somebody having a gift. Like, you are a gifted, talented musician and artist. That doesn't mean that you have a gift. It means that you have a gift that is meant to be given away. That means that you have a gift to share. And this is where so many artists get stuck and they get blocked, is their ego is attached to the creativity. It's like, well, this is my thing. look, and if I put it out and my ego is attached to it, then what if it fails, or what if I get rejected, or what if people make fun of me, or what if people don't like it? As soon as you get your ego out of the way, none of that shit matters. It's like, this is a gift that the universe has given you to share and to give away. And when you tap into that purpose, the whole game changes, right? It's like you are like a true hero on the hero's journey. The hero isn't out there to get the glory for themselves. The hero is out there to save the fucking world. The hero is out there on a mission to help humanity in some way. And they're willing to do whatever it takes. They're willing to die, right? In service. And so if you truly are embodied in that, being like, yo, I am just the vehicle, I am the vessel, I'm here to share this gift, that is my mission, then I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And that might mean learning how to fucking make a TikTok. That might mean learning how to do this other business side of your marketing, investing in yourself, like all the business side that a lot of people resist is, I think it actually becomes a lot easier when you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for something much bigger than yourself.
That's interesting too. When you said like something's coming, when they're using it as I'm just a vessel, the universe is sending it to me. The universe isn't going to send it for you. It's just a person. The universe is always about the better good. If you're getting something from the universe, it's never just for yourself. The universe is always like, we need to make the place a better place, make everyone else better. You should share this with everyone else and get it out there. The question I had earlier was, a lot of these DJs are coming up, a lot of them are introverts of what I found, they're coming up. They're not very extroverted people. They're really in front of their computer a lot, working on their craft. When you think about in the day of when artists came up, they were in a band, right? They usually, you had your drummer, your singer, or sometimes you had your vocalist, and then they got paired up with somebody else, and then they started a band out there in LA, and they could work together to create something and have their ideas to share. And I'm just wondering, you were talking about these guys that when they're at the conference, they're just, they're living in their van, which makes sense. They're trying to make it. But a lot of these people are just doing it by themselves. They don't have, I'm sure they have friends elsewhere, but a lot of the friends have their own things going on in the world. They're not going with them.
Yeah.
For what you do as a life coach, it seems like a lot of these up and coming artists need somebody like you to really just be like a support and guide them and help them understand like where to go, because they don't have like someone else to lean on in their band per se.
Yeah.
For advice or ask, or, hey, let's figure out what to do together. They're like trying to figure it out on their own.
Yeah. I had a huge breakthrough recently that I think where everything just really clicked for me, because I had actually pulled away from artist coaching for a while, because I was feeling, part of me was like my interest was just going in a different place. I really got pulled into the sort of men's work space, and I was really like diving, like all the artists I was signing were always mostly guys, mostly men. I think they just sort of resonate with my archetype and my vibe. And so I was going down that path. And I think a part of it though, also I had a moment where I was like, oh, like who am I to be coaching artists? Like I didn't chase my dream of being an artist. So like I was feeling out of integrity. Like I'm not really making music. Who am I to be doing this? And then it all clicked for me when I realized, I'm like, you know what, my background, I did grow up making music. I am an artist. I still shred on my guitar, for fun here and there. I'm not necessarily pursuing it professionally, but I also was like an all-American rugby player and won state championships and was the captain of every team I ever played for and won every possible award I could possibly win in the realm of sports. And it all clicked for me because I'm like, oh, I'm a coach. And that's where I got introduced to coaching, was 15 years old, going out for the rugby team and having somebody see my potential and help me unlock that potential. And I was, at the time, I was like smoking weed every day, little skater. And not that I stopped smoking weed. I kept fucking partying and having fun. That's why I came out for rugby, was because those guys were fucking party animals. I was like, yeah, I want to hang out with these guys. But little did I know when I came out that it would completely change the trajectory of my life and help me develop. Like, I became a fucking beast. I had never played sports before in my life, but having a coach, not only having a coach, but also having the team, having the structure, having the discipline, having the practices, having schedules, And so I just had this huge breakthrough. I was like looking, especially with music producers that make all of their music by themselves and they sit in their room by themselves. The path of an artist can be very, very lonely. Whereas looking at the path of an athlete, artists and athletes, they're very, very similar. They're chasing a dream that's like very competitive, somebody that wants to win the Super Bowl and somebody that wants to win a Grammy. They're like super high achievement accolades, the highest paid people in the world, the most famous people in the world. The path is very, very similar. The goal is very, very similar, but the structure around it is very, very different, right? Being an artist, there's like no real rules. There's no systems. There's usually, not a lot of teamwork. There's, it's like, so that's where it clicked. I'm like, oh my God, like I need to bring what I've learned from the sports world and some of that structure, some of that discipline, some of that guidance, also some of that camaraderie and teamwork. I'm actually working on building a community right now where I just want to get, like this is the biggest thing I'm seeing a lot of people need is not to be on the lone wolf path. Right. And so I think there's a lot that we can learn from the sports world. And that's kind of like, even with my podcast, I'm like, I'm the second episode I did was with my, one of my old CrossFit coaches. Cause I want to interview coaches as well, like other like sports coaches and I'm got into sports psychology and like, what can we learn from the world of athletes and how can we apply that to artists? But that teamwork part of it is really big. Like, no.
I would feel like that teamwork would have to be super important, especially if you're touring too, right? You're the artist, you're the person, everyone's coming to see you. They're not coming to see a group of people. And so when you're touring by yourself, I feel like you definitely need that support when you're going across the country to your shows. I'm sure you have your posse with you that are changing out maybe along the way, or they're with you the whole time. But to have someone, your posse is probably, you're just your friends. They don't have someone that also knows the industry that you could lean on for advice.
Well, if you're lucky, and this is where, artists that are, especially, when you start off as a DJ, you start getting booked, your rate is just enough to really like send you to wherever you need to go. When you start, getting paid a bit more, then maybe you bring a tour manager with you, or like, you get bigger, you start having more of a crew and more of a team. But for a lot of artists, and for a while there, a lot of them are traveling by themselves. And even big ones, and so this is a conversation that we have a lot, is the roller coaster of, 1 minute you're on stage and you're in front of thousands of people and like you're fucking God for that moment. Everybody is obsessed with you. Everybody is like praising you, right? And then 2 hours later, you're by yourself in your hotel room. And it's the extremes of the highs and the lows. This is one of the biggest things that touring artists really have to learn how to navigate. It can be an emotional, roller coaster. It can be a total mind fuck or you're gone on tour for a couple months and you're just like living this like rock star lifestyle. And then you're back in your apartment by yourself and like taking out the trash like a normal fucking peasant, right?
Hearing the crickets.
And so it's the roller coaster of like that, what that normal baseline actually can become very difficult when you're at these highs, because you don't stay at the high, and I think, this is on a bigger level, one of the tough and sad things that you see. How many artists do we know that end up killing themselves? And I think that it can definitely and is a part of it. It's just like this roller coaster of like, 1 minute you're like the highest in the world, and then you got to come back down to reality and just bouncing back and forth between that. I can only imagine how that can be really, really tough. And like most people are never going to understand that. Most of us are never going to understand what that's like.
Yeah, it's back, that really high.
Go for it, buddy.
Am I running? I'm the one running.
Yeah, you're running.
It's that high, right? Like that really high, peak dopamine. And then piggybacking, circling back to Dylan, what you're sharing earlier around like, hey, the universe is going to like distribute that muse, so to speak, right? Like, Nick, when you're talking about, hey, this is the vessel chosen. One of the things that I think is pretty cool now with the access that we get to artists, seeing the rise of personal development in producers and DJs. Like some of my favorite creators are being like very open. It was cool to seeing like 3-4 years ago. It was like Dylan Francis, I think, was the first creator that I was following that it felt like he was unapologetically sharing what he was doing to clean himself up and kind of like not rebrand himself, but push himself and he gave all the credit to his parents and whatnot. But seeing the artists really start to honor their vessel and treat themselves like a conduit, right? Where they're like, hey, I want to be sober on tour. I want to be able to produce as high quality product as possible. And I don't feel like that has been a theme. And again, I live in my own echo chamber, right? So that could just be what I'm seeing, but it feels like that is something that is being accepted a little bit more by society at large. Personal development, like working on yourself, but especially in the music industry and what a marathon that is.
Yeah. I think there is an element of, it's like personal development. Maybe it's like the overall brand of personal development. Like it's cool to meditate now. It's cool to take care of yourself now. It's cool to stay hydrated. It's cool to read a personal development book. Whereas before, maybe 10 years ago, it maybe was like, just maybe a different sort of like I feel like it's going through a rebrand, and I love it. You got I like honestly like seeing Aubrey Marcus come, like he was the first guy that I was like, oh my God, there's a dude out here who's like got tattoos and kind of looks like me, but he's talking about like really woke shit. So I was like, oh, I can be like a fucking buff masculine jock, but also be really woke and be in touch with like my feminine side and all of this. So I think we're rebranding personal development in general, which is rad. Even spirituality in general, I love that, because especially in the world of artists, it's like, there is a cool factor, especially in the world of electronic music. It's like it literally revolves around partying. So that element of it, it's like, drugs and alcohol are a part of the economy. It's built in to the underlying foundation of the industry. It's always going to be there. Nobody's going to a show. Well, not nobody, but the majority of a crowd that's going to a show is having some sort of mind alteration, right?
Something
in some place. But to speak into that a little bit more, I think Steve Aoki was one of the first people that I saw really talk about it and make a shift. Not even like more so from the perspective of I'm running a fucking multi-million-dollar business, right? I can't get drunk every single night and sustain running a multi-million-dollar business. I am my business. I have to get out there and perform. I have to get out there and survive. He plays a crazy amount of shows, and he's like out there being wild, throwing cakes, stage diving and shit. And he's like, I have to operate this machine. My body is my business, right? So, I think he stopped drinking and got into yoga and drinking green juice. People putting healthy shit on their rider instead of just partying. It's like, I think a lot of people don't realize this. Like, we go to the show, let's say we go out even once a month, twice a month. All right, okay, cool. We can go get fucked up a couple times a month, but an artist, it's like if they're fully touring, they're playing 4 shows a week, 5 shows a week. They're playing 20 shows a month. You can't expect somebody to get fucked up like that, or to be like, promoters are like, yeah, hey, take some shots. Here, you got to, every time you go out, you get a rider. A rider is like what they give you backstage, and it's usually like whatever kind of bottle of alcohol you want, and Red Bull, and for sure promoters are hooking people up with what other kind of substances they want as well. It's like completely unrealistic to think that you're going to sustain doing that 20 nights a week, and especially at like that high level. It's kind of at some of the lower level, like a lot of people are going to get caught up in that, and that's why honestly a lot of people are getting into it. Like, oh, I want to be a rock star, That's some full fucking rock star shit. Like, hell yeah, but like, okay, how long is that going to last? How well is your business going to run? I mean, you're seeing dudes get canceled all the fucking time. It's like, dude, I bet you if you were sober, you would have a better head screwed on your shoulders. You wouldn't be making dumb fucking mistakes, being an idiot, getting canceled. Like, bro, your $1 million a year business is done now. And for sure, being irresponsible with substances is definitely a contributing factor to that. So, back to this sort of like headliner mindset is like, yeah, dude, you want to not only like get there, but you want to stay there. Like, you got to learn how to balance having fun. I'm not saying you need to be sober.
Let me throw you a curveball though. Okay, because I was thinking about this, and this is premeditated. But there's also something that comes up in me that wants to rebuke that a little bit with creators.
Away.
So, can anyone remind me the author behind Fear and Loathing?
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson, right? Now everything I'm going to say is very much against the grain. I'm going to go ahead and preempt this with like the exemption is not the rule, right? But there is also something to be said with like that unbridled free will, grabbing life by the balls. Rock, like some of the bands that I've envied the most are the ones that they're just going full fucking tilt, and it seems like there's also something that they tap into. And again, this is just the exemption, right? But like some of the highest highs that have the lowest lows, the bands that fucking crumble apart, or the artists, they're messed up out of their mind, and they get this little inspiration, this whisper of inspiration, whatever, and then they run with it. And granted, they're coping with all kinds of trauma, and they're covering up the lows with artificial highs. But would you say that there's ever like examples of where people are just like, artists especially, just, hey, this is who I am? And I'm using Hunter S. Thompson as an example because he was an amazing creator, and his schedule, his regiment of drugs and alcohol is like unrivaled, right? Mm-hmm. So would you say there's any there's any population of artists that seem like they can kind of juggle it all? Or do you feel like it's always the dragon eating its tail and it eventually catches up to all of them?
I mean, I don't know how did Hunter S. Thompson like end up?
Do you know his schedule?
No. I know what he was doing, but like when you say like it eventually catches up to him, like I don't know like what the end of his story was. Like, did it catch
dude
up
fucking
with him?
died. Yeah, I mean that's it. His heart probably exploded.
Yeah. So
no, I mean, so like a lot of the artists I'm seeing, where it catches up with them, they just, like you're saying, you're like, hey, if you weren't sober, that probably, or if you were sober, that's probably not happening, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I get that, and there's such a conversation, or there's this idea of the tortured artist, and that the creativity comes from pain, or it just comes from wild fucking lifestyle. Think about every 80s metal band ever, like even Metallica, they were just fueled on fucking Budweiser for 20 years. That shit was fire, right?
Like how many Tool songs came from heroin,
Yeah. I mean, think about the 60s and just like the psychedelic influence on music, right?
Right.
And I would be curious to know like what he wrote if he was sober. There's an assumption. What if he actually was a fucking even much more of a genius than we ever thought? Mm-hmm. What books weren't written? What albums weren't made? What songs weren't made? Is it possible that they could have actually been even better? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is all speculative, right? I just wanted to get your hot take on
another angle to consider. Yeah, it's cool. Like one of the artists I just interviewed was a really good friend who goes by Hades, and I knew her, man. She was fucked up. She was just a drug addict and really just struggling, and was like in and out of rehab a couple times. And just saw her going through that, just that painful process of drug addiction. And we talked a lot about this on the episode. But what was cool was I hadn't, she'd been like sober for like 3 years, and I knew her back when she was still on drugs, and I was familiar with what she was making then. And then I like got on her Spotify and I listened to the last couple songs that she had made. I was like, holy shit, this is so fucking good. This is such a level up. And we had a great conversation about it. She was like, yeah, like I thought like I was like tapping into my pain. I thought that like I kind of needed to be in this tortured artist state to create. And she's like, now that I'm like, my head is clear, she's like, the muse is still there. And I have so much more access to it now in like a very clear way. And there's just this significantly obvious just level up in creativity. She could have continued to go down that path and made shit that would resonate probably with certain people that maybe were also struggling and could also feel the pain and like, cool. But, what she's making now is just rad. And yeah, who knows, man? I think there's a lot of artists that, can go both ways.
I think it also kind of just pulls the thread. We've kind of talked shop a little bit, whether we're going out, what was it, last weekend, the weekend before, and some of the conversations we've had in the gym, where it's like, especially seeing your conscious movement towards being cleaner and cleaner, especially like out in social environments where it's like, hey, it's really easy to want to partake in altering your consciousness at a show. Like that's the norm, right? It's kind of going against the grain, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I'm lucky. I've gone through a handful of little sobriety phases. The best one I did was like kind of right when I was I was becoming a manager and just getting into the scene. I got to the point where I got, free backstage every time, at all the shows and access to all the booze. And I like didn't drink for like a year or something. And so what I learned how to just like have like really just sober, how to be out in that environment and just have sober conversations and be able to connect with people. And it was so good. It was such a healthy phase for me, but I've also just really learned, I don't know, just how to have fun. Like the thing is like, I have fucking fun, like, especially with dancing, like when I go out, it's like, give me a Red Bull and let's fucking get down. Like I literally will have more fun if, and not to say like I'm not down to, partake here and there in the right situation. But, just dude, like I've like learned how to have fun. I've learned how to have a good time. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like for me actually being on substances will actually, it's just not as fun, especially like alcohol. I'm like, oh, I'm just fucking slow. I'm tired. I'm sloppy. Like it doesn't heighten me. And again, I've been partying since I was fucking 12 years old in 7th grade, and I was a rugby
ever
player.
since I could grow a mustache,
bro. I came out. I was getting fucked up, bro. Yeah. So I did my journey already. I was like, I know. I've been here 1,000 times. And
isn't that funny? It feels like every time I go to have an alcoholic drink, I'm like, maybe this time will be different. There's like that voice in the back of my head. It's like,
just kind of buzz. Yeah.
Maybe this is what I want,
Mine always goes, we're back again, huh?
Hey, welcome back, baby.
The Dukes of Hazzard.
You already know where we're going. Don't think that way. It's got to be interesting though with those these artists that are coming up too. A lot of them probably never had a lot of the experiences that some of us might have had when we were young coming up, or high school had the experiences.
Oh yeah,
coming up, and now let's say they get some success going.
Yeah.
Right. They're on their rider. They're like, what do you want? And they're like, a couple bottles, whatever.
Yeah,
and then they're getting drunk before the shows. I bet some of these people just like let loose a little bit too much. You see it in college.
It's a really good point.
High schoolers go.
Exactly, right? Like the kid that never partied in high school and then they go to college and they go fucking ape shit.
0.0.
Yeah. They're just like, holy shit. Like I never really thought about that comparison, but for sure, especially electronic music producers, a lot of them are like, they're just nerdy as fuck. They like,
dude, I'm so glad you said that. I was baking that. I'm like, be a great producer, like, dude,
they were not. A lot of them were not the cool kid in high school. It was like, it's like, that's what they found. They found solace in, I can, I'm playing computer games and shit. And like, I'm good at computers and I'm really like start learning the software and I start making music, or I discovered electronic music from playing video games. And then I started learning how to make the music. And I just spent my entire career, high school career, into my 20s something, just in my bedroom by myself, like not really developing, maybe a lot of, social skills that like, the kids that were going out to all the parties were. Right. And so now all of a sudden you put out some songs, you blow up, you're the fucking man. Right. You go from being, like not popular at all to being like famous. Right.
You're tired. Your manager's like, just go. There's something on the table. Just go take care of that and come back.
Yeah, dude. Just getting all of the drugs and alcohol and ass thrown at you that you could possibly imagine and handle from 0 to 100. Dude, I would probably fucking die, dude.
So it's even like a really beautiful surprise when you see not so much. This is a little bit of a hard transition from nerdy to to famous, but like when you see an artist, like two of the artists I've seen recently that like I've just totally fell in love with is Ray Volt, Bring Out the Lasers, big hit single, and a craze. What was his one? The remix that he did, "Do It to It."
Yeah, that was it.
Right? Yeah. So seeing those two artists, Nick, I don't know if you're familiar with Ray Bob. Okay, but once they blew up, all the work they put in, like they had this repertoire, they had this vault of music, and it was like this really smooth on ramp, right? Like I'm seeing Ray Volp, he's on a ton of tracks now, right? And same thing with the craze. So it's also really cool when you see clearly that an artist has been putting in the work, and they've been incubating their talent and their skills, you know, disregarding all like the business stuff, right? But just when it comes to producing in the craft, and then they get their moment, and you can like, it's just cool being an observer, and it's like, oh man, you've clearly done the work, and now you seized the moment, right? Like you hit the apex, and you're like, no, check out all this other stuff that I have too, and it just like it's like now they're the plane that has 30,000 feet, right? They're cruising. Past like the turbulent weather stage.
And I think, you know, everyone deserves to have fun. They deserve to be rewarded. They deserve to be acknowledged. They deserve the attention. It's like, hell yeah. I'm not demonizing the party and the reward that comes with, like, I like that you're bringing up like all the hard work. Like, yeah, you fucking earned that, dude. Hell yeah. And, you know, we've just seen so many cases of it going too far. It's like you're kind of playing with fire. You got to be able to walk this tightrope of like, how do I sustain this lifestyle? And it's funny, I've never thought about this, but I'm processing my own deeper motivation around this, where when I was young, I didn't have anybody telling me not to party. I had like no discipline from my parents, or, you know, no. Getting into college, it was like I was fucking crazy, dude. I was a hard party animal, and I was just getting blacked out all the time, and it was like funny because, oh, you're just like a college kid. I didn't have any voice in my life saying like, hey, dude, maybe you should slow down a little bit, right? Nobody was saying that like, yo, this is actually a little bit too much, and you have a problem, and you need to reel it back in a little bit. And I think that, because I didn't really have anybody being that voice, that's probably why I'm a bit attracted to playing that role, and you know, wanting to just like make sure that everyone's staying healthy and they're staying balanced and they're having fun, but they're also taking care of themselves and they're not having too much fun. It's like, I want to see you around, dude. I don't want your career to burn out. I also don't want to lose you as a person, which we've seen. You know, it's funny. I have a client like who was like one of my old clients, who's doing really, really well. He's doing well, and I see him. He's really young, and he's actually very much that kid where he went straight from high school straight to the music production school, and then just like has been like taken off. So he's an amazing guy, like total sweetheart. But now I'm like, oh, dude, I see you getting the attention, getting fame, getting you know, I see you having a little bit of fun out there. So it's very much like, you know, anytime we check in, I'm like, all right, how are you balancing all of this? Like, are you doing good? Are you doing okay? Just like older brother check in, right? Like I'm gonna be here to bitch slap you and like bring you back to earth if you need it, because I've just seen, you know, there's too many people that we see out there that and it's hard. Like, I think what's cool with me is it kind of is like the job of your manager to like help manage. Really, their real job is to manage your business, but they also have to play a role of managing the artist too. Where my big picture vision is to start bringing the world of coaching and more coaches into the music industry, so that the manager can really manage the business, and you can have another person on your team that's helping manage the artist. Great idea, right? And there's, you know, tour managers do that. You know, your managers kind of do that as well, but it's like my vision and sort of my bigger picture mission is to start literally like changing the infrastructure of the music industry and normalizing having coaches be there, people that are also like trained, you know, like where I've put in my 10,000 hours, maybe not 10,000 yet, but like I'm getting pretty close, of, you know, having these deeper sort of conversations and just knowing how to, you know, ask the right questions and keep people in line. So,
see a lot of people with, you see a lot of the older guys start getting into the gym too. The older artists, you start seeing them.
Oh yeah.
They're starting to get bigger. They're showing off in their TikToks and Instagram too. They're going to the gym. And they're
Yeah,
like, man,
dude.
I wish I'd done this years ago. And
Yeah.
now they're starting to like flex on the stage, and you're like,
Fuck yeah.
all right, hell yeah.
Yeah,
But they don't
dude.
do it until they're like, their body starts hurting.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
need to do this now. That'd be awesome if like even younger artists were doing it,
Yeah. And that's where I'm like, yo, establish these habits and the mindset now, lay the foundation, get these fundamentals figured out, and set yourself up for success. Not when it's like you're crashing and burning and your whole life is falling apart and like now you have to figure it out. It's like let's build this in now. It will really set you up for longevity and more than that too. I think there's it's wild, really looking at how many people are actually enjoying the process. Where it's like you're so like, dude, I'm so committed to this goal and to this dream, and I'm gonna just like, you do have to work your ass off to get there. But a lot of people are like, I'm not gonna be happy until I get there. And if there was one magic pill or magic wand that I could wave, would be to really teach people to be like, yo, can we also be happy on the journey, and not wait until we get there? Because if you don't learn how to be happy now, I've seen it way too many times that you're not going to be happy when you get there either.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, countless examples of that.
And I think that's one of the beautiful roles that you get to play is like, kind of being like an outside observer, outside lighthouse for these artists, like even kind of harping back to what we were talking about earlier. Like one of the reasons I wanted to step in your head and see what you thought about, someone tapping in the muse with altered state of consciousness or altered kind of lifestyle or whatever, is that you being in the role you're in, it seems like you're more of like hey, let's make sure we tighten things up now, because if you don't, like that, you get kind of be the lighthouse. It's like, hey, there's a bunch of rocks right over there, right? Yeah. Like you're going through this pass, and your role seems to be just kind of keep someone kind of even in the middle, right? Where it's like, hey, it's okay if you drift. Everyone's going to drift, right? Let's just make sure you navigate this the right way. So something that came to mind when you were speaking earlier is that if you put in front of an artist, you're like, hey, would you rather have that moment at EDC or Forbidden Lost Lands or whatever it is, right? Or would you rather have, let's say, 30, okay, like cool nights, nothing really special happened. You probably don't even remember the conversations. You had fun. You had a lot of fun, but you got to sacrifice this. Like if you plainly laid out in front of them, like, hey, if you accept all those bottles on the rider, if you do everything that's in front of you and have those 30 like subpar, not high moment nights, or this one magical moment. And that seems to be kind of the role you get to play, is like helping them piece together those little decisions that are going to lead up to that big moment in their life, that dream.
What's really interesting about that was on the very first episode of the podcast, I interviewed this girl, Sippy, and she's a dubstep DJ from Australia. Chased her dream, moved out to America. She's been touring, killing it. And I'm really interested to pick other artists' brains about what she shared with me, which was the, how do I say, like, she hit one of those big milestone moments. And it was actually, the expectation of what you think it's supposed to feel like, and then realizing that it's like, yeah, that was cool, but it didn't actually give me the fulfillment that I had imagined in my head the whole time. Where she's like, I played in front of 9,000 people at Red Rocks, which is like, you would think that would be like, that's the fucking moment. Like, oh my God.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But she was saying it was actually when she did a small music producer workshop and like taught like a dozen kids some tips about making music. It wasn't even in that moment. It was like the next day. She said she was just like walking down the street having a cup of coffee and just like felt how cool it was to teach those kids. She said that felt better than playing in front of the 9,000 people at Red Rocks. Right. And so that's a really, really interesting thing, because we think that those are going to be the moments, but also especially when those moments kind of become normal, right? Like, okay, cool. I'm doing it. I'm playing the shows. I'm having these big, great moments. At the end of the day, you're still human, at the end of the day, it also does become your job and it becomes your career. So everyone in the crowd's having the best fucking moment of their life, but you're still a person. You're still a DJ. Like, you might just be having a bad day. Like, you're kind of going to work. Some days at work are like really dope. Some days you're like, fuck, I kind of got to clock in and clock out. Artists are no exception to that. We expect them, like, yo, when you get on stage, like, you got to bring your best, It's like, well, do you bring your best every day at work all the time? Or do you have some shitty days where you're maybe not really feeling it? And so that's an interesting thing I want to explore more with artists, is like really looking at the actual fulfillment that they get in those big moments. And I've also heard the opposite, though. I've heard David Guetta has told me that, being on stage, seeing 20,000 people jump up and down at the same time to a song that you created, he said that's the best drug you will ever fucking take. Because we were talking about like partying. He's like I don't party. He's like I don't really do drugs or alcohol or nothing. He's like, but that fucking moment, he's like, that's the thing.
That's the dragon he's chasing.
Yeah. But I'm sure he's probably had his days too, where he's been out there and been like, yeah, like, all right.
There's been a few clips.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Just all zoned out. Yeah.
I've had that moment where, like, I saw one of my favorite bands at Concourse, and halfway through the show, I was like, yeah, I just feel it's like, I think yesterday morning we were talking about that. I was like, I think I've kind of decided for the most part that if I am 10 out of 10 stoked to see an artist, I want to at least give myself the opportunity to see them when I think they would be fired up, right? Like, they're playing in front of 20, 40, 60, 80,000 people, because you feel the energy. If you've seen enough shows, you kind of know when they're in flow, right? They're like reacting to the crowd. Like, maybe they had a set planned and they're like, oh, I need to switch to a different crate, or et cetera, et cetera. And it was kind of a buzzkill when I saw, one of my favorite bands. Like, you could tell they were just, maybe they're having a down day. And I think even this conversation is helping me have a lot more compassion for them, because that's their job. I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah, dude. And that might be like show number 35 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it was that like show 3 out of 4 for them in 2 days.
Yeah, as a fan, back to that idea, it's like, yo, this is the one night that you have to go out and to party and to give it your all on the dance floor. And it's like, okay, that artist has just played 20 shows that month.
Yeah.
So you can't really expect the same thing from them per se, right?
Mm. Yeah. The artist's life. Yeah,
man. It's cool. I feel very blessed to have, followed my intuition to this place and to have chosen to, because I'd kind of walked away from it, like I was saying before, and I just had a huge realization where I was like, because I was like, kind of becoming a men's coach and like wanting to go to that path. I was like, there's fucking 10,000 men's coaches literally just here in Austin. We don't need another men's coach.
That is probably an accurate stat, by the way.
Yeah, like I don't need to, put on my big hat and some fucking feathers and shit. Like I need to be serving these motherfuckers that I've been with for the last 15 years, that I care about and that I understand, that I am one as well. And that, like, nobody's really serving. It's like not a lot of us out there. I know 2 other people, three other people. I'm sure there's more. But like I said, I'm excited to see more people get into this space.
And from a business standpoint too, such a good idea. Like you were saying, managers have to not only handle the business side of everything that's going on, as we've always seen too, they have to take care of their artist. They lose their client, they lose their business. This is outsourcing such a fundamental, huge part of, probably a manager's mind, is not very revenue generating, right? They're like, I'm here to take care of this. I wish someone was here to take care of the artist for me. Yeah. Right. And they're probably not doing it from a horrible way. Like, man, fuck this artist. I wish there was someone taking care of them. They're like, I am so busy with this.
Yeah.
Take care of the artist is a full-time job to make sure their mental health is taken care of. And mental health is becoming so much more important. I think this is I don't even think it's going to be a niche after a while. I think you're ahead of the game on it.
And here's the thing is it actually is and can be very revenue generating
For
if
sure.
if you have an
Yeah.
artist that's making $100,000 a month in their business, right? And then all of a sudden they're not able to play shows. They're starting to break down. They're starting to burn out, right? Or you know, as Steve Aoki's recognizing, like, dude, I'm running a fucking $30 million a year business right now. If that artist has to cancel his run of shows, you're losing a lot of fucking money, right? So is it worth it having somebody on your team that can make sure that, like, yo, this machine stays up and running? And I mean, by machine, I mean this human stays up and running and stays dialed in, you know? One of the first mentors that I had was the guy who coached Metallica. One night I was up, I couldn't sleep. I popped on Netflix and I started watching Some Kind of Monster documentary. And it was about when Metallica, they were going in to write a new album, but the bass player quit the band. James Hetfield was going to rehab. So the manager's like, yo, this is like a multi-million-dollar a month business. And we need to figure this shit out. So they brought in a coach. And a lot of that documentary was about having this guy on you know, he's like a therapist, really sitting down with the band, getting them to talk about their feelings and their issues and their problems. And that's another dynamic, to actually be working with a team like that. Super, super cool. But, you know, he you know, in a way, almost kind of saved the band. Who knows how much money he actually made them, right? So it is actually a really smart financial investment.
100%. And
So
I wasn't saying
hire me, motherfuckers.
yeah, and I wasn't saying your position isn't revenue generating. I was saying for like the manager, they're like, I have to deal with this. I wish someone had that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. If the artist's health isn't taken care of,
Yeah.
you know, what's going to happen?
And I think a lot of managers just aren't, you know, it's not, you know, a lot of managers that's probably the best person for the job. They're really good at that. A lot of managers are better at managing the business. Maybe they're not as good at that side of it. So, okay, cool. Hit me up, dog.
That's right.
And as a consumer of great music, I mean, I'm pretty selfish. I want more of it.
More.
Yeah.
I want a little more. Pay
There's
a little
nothing
bit more
that sucks
dollars.
more when you feel an artist like Grizz right now. He just announced he's stepping back for a bit indefinitely. He's just like, I just need a break kind of thing. I'm like,
So glad we saw him.
bitch, I just saw you. I need more. You know, I'm like, tap the main vein. Keep going, man. But
I actually love seeing that. I love
for
seeing
sure,
people
for
like
sure.
like,
I mean-
and I've seen it a handful of times. I think Hardwell, I saw, you know, talk about it, take a step out. What was it? What was that guy? Goes by Gordo now. What did he used to be called? Gordo was
Carnage.
Carnage. Yeah, Carnage is like, you know, just like taking, dude,
That guy needs a break
especially
after every show.
dude, especially if you've been going at it for years. I had to take a break just with my coaching this last year, even just like a little bit of time off. We all need those breaks, and that should be part of the process for people. But
Look at Odessa. They took a break for a while, but their show is so crisp and they're so hard on what they're doing. But they were on a hiatus because of how stressful probably keeping how crisp their show needs to be.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it with a lot of CrossFitters as well. Actually, you know, the girl that was, you know, basically the female champion CrossFitter just retired, and the girl who was like second place, like the new up and comer, she basically, this was her year to step in and be like, this is my championship now. She's like, nobody's even close to her, and she decided to take the year off. And just for like mental health, she's like, dude, I just need time for myself. Yeah. Her and another, you know, like top 5 girl that were, you know, competing for the gold. They're just like, yeah, they were both taking the season off, and that's just cool. You know, seeing that more with athletes as well. It's like we have this expectation, like, oh, you should be always on and always performing and always putting out music and always on tour. It's like, well, we got to have a little bit of compassion for the human behind it as well.
Yeah, because you don't want them to burn out. And I mean, they're like Steve Aoki. I watched a little bit about his tour. I just watched like a extended interview with him. I think it was like 260 shows
a year. Yeah,
in a year.
Crazy.
And he's been doing that for the better part
time.
of 10 to 15 years.
It's crazy.
He's got that cake down too.
That's what it was. Someone asked him, like, how many cakes do you think you've thrown? He was like, I think it was something like 4,000 or 5,000. I mean, I'm pulling a number out of the air, right? But it was in the thousands. And they're like, break that down. And he was like, well, you know, this is about what the shows I average. And then he's like, you know, da-da-da-da. And so He's like, yeah, I got pretty good at throwing cakes. He's like,
Better than some NFL QBs probably. But
throwing a sheet cake, man.
That's
Cool, man.
awesome.
Well, you ready to land the plane, Dylan?
Yeah. I don't mind asking for it this time too as well.
All right, take her away.
Nick, we always like closing it out with a special question to all of our guests. What is a question that you wish either more people asked you or more of your clients asked you? It's kind of like a Tim Ferriss type question, kind of a broad question. What is a question you wish more people asked you?
Let me think about that one for a minute. A question that more people asked me. Yeah, let me think about that. Damn, that's a hard one. I'm not sure.
We're okay with empty space. You can take your time.
Yeah. I want this to be
The
Let me
real
see
ones
what's
stick
there.
around for the answer, so take your time.
Yeah.
Let me stoke the fire for a second.
Yeah. All right. What would I want people to ask me?
What do you wish more people asked you about?
I mean, just like about,
Could be
just
coaching.
just
Could be your life.
yeah.
Could be what kind of car you like. Whatever you like.
Yeah. Damn, y'all got me stumped on this one, man. I'm literally stumped right now. This is a really good question.
We like it because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, how's your soul kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what do you feel like doesn't get attended to the most? What do you wish more people were more curious about when it comes to you?
Yeah. I just on a simple level, I really love the question, what are you grateful for? Because it's an opportunity to be grateful. It's an opportunity to count your blessings and to tap in to the energy of gratitude. And it's a question I love asking people all the time, just to pause. What are you grateful for? All right. If more people ask me that question, it would give me an opportunity to share my answer, to feel that, and also to give them that opportunity as well. I really love those moments, and we're able to create them as much as we want. But it's like we rarely do, because we're usually thinking about like, oh, like what else do you want, or what's that next level to go to, or we're just always, I feel like I am often always looking at, like what's next, right? Or what's not working, or what do you need to work on? What do you need to fix? What do you want to change? It's like, well, what do we already have, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. What are you grateful for?
Beautiful, brother.
Can I ask you guys a question before we end?
Hell yeah.
Please.
What are you grateful for?
I am grateful that I have the resources to create, and not necessarily money, but all the shit I've been through in this moment right now. It feels like just where I'm at in my life, it's requiring a lot of tools. So I'm having to self-regulate. Well, it seems like I would say daily basis, but it's like I'm having to regulate a lot. And I'm really grateful for the resources that I'm able to take advantage of, whether it's friendship or thoughts or on a more practical level. But I'm really grateful that, I don't feel like I'm spinning out to space.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm grateful for that. I've been blessed with a mindset to break away from a mold that my families and my past families have created for themselves, and I'm trying to break away from it. And at the same time, as I'm doing that, it's bringing a lot of new things to me that no one else in my growing up life ever got to experience. And so it's allowing opportunities to always be fresh for me. I always like fresh, I always like new, exploring, doing new things, going new places, putting myself out there like this podcast. So yeah, I'm grateful that I'm blessed with a mindset to break away from the mold.
Cool. Thank you guys for sharing that with me.
Thank you for sharing you with us.
Yes.
And with that, we bid you adieu until the next Word You Dumb. Hey, if you liked this episode, share it with someone you know, share it with someone you love, and we'll see you next week.
And give us the name of your podcast one more time, Nick.
The Headliner Mindset.
Headliner Mindset. Check it out, folks. Peace.